Hello everyone and welcome to Jacqs Crafts. Thanks for joining me today. I am super excited to share with you not only a design team project for Country Craft Creation, but another collaboration with Michelle Allen of A Creative Operation. Now, if you have been following me for a little while, you know that I am working on a wedding memory planner mini series, and this was inspired by Michelle's Let's Create project planner. And in that planner, one of the items that she created was a magazine holder. Well, I collaborated with her and I took her idea and made it into cut files so that we could recreate it. I'm also incorporating some of her page designs in my wedding memory planner, and so a collaboration came together. Well, we have once again come together to bring another collaboration on a new type of hinge. Michelle took the magazine holder idea and she expanded on it and created the slotted hinge. So this is the original design that Michelle came up with. It is a hinge with 2 slots, and you can add notebooks to it. You could add loose papers, all kinds of ways to use this. Now, if you want to see this particular hinge in action, make sure to watch Michelle's latest video where she is using By the Seaside by Country Craft Creations. It's a fabulous project. So what I'm sharing with you today is another take on the slotted hinge. What I've done is taken this idea and resized it. As soon as Michelle shared her idea with me, I said, oh, I can make that into an SVG for you. And then I started to think about what I would use it for. And one of the ideas came to mind was something that I've been wanting to do for quite some time. And that is a placeholder for all of those cards we get when we go to retreats or when we do virtual retreats. So that is my project share for today. It is a Keepsake card mini album. But before I get into that, let me tell you about the second slotted hinge that we've created. Now, this is the finished design. As you can see, this one is longer, has 2 slots. This one is shorter and has 6 slots in it. This was specifically designed to hold A2 cards and under. But keep in mind, it not only holds cards, but it can hold notebooks, loose papers, memorabilia, articles, whatever you want can be placed into these as long as they fit within the slots. So with this idea, I created my project. Now let me go into showing the project, and then I'll tell you more about how to use this particular slotted hinge as I go into the tutorial later on in this video. For this project, I used Bloom Where You're Planted by Country Craft Creation, and here is my project, the Keepsake card mini album. So this measures 5 3/4 inches wide by 6 5/8 inches tall, and it has a 3 1/4 inch spine. So on the front we have some My Colors Polar Bear Glimmer cardstock, the white here. I've layered on some of the Paper Collection pattern paper. It's such a gorgeous collection. And then I've used some cardstock from my stash, which is also glimmer. It's called a Sunrise. And I even cut out some honeycomb pieces using Cricut Design Space and my Cricut Maker. On the top here, we have a 3x4 cut apart card, and I've layered it on the Sunrise cardstock and then put that up on foam so that it would be elevated and give some dimension to the cover. I then added some Prima flowers that I had in my stash and a bee charm, which I also put up on foam adhesive to give some dimension there as well. It's a nice, simple cover, and I really like that. I thought this was the perfect collection to use since what I was putting in it was related to a bee scrappy retreat that Country Craft Creations held in 2021. On the spine, I've added one of the ephemera pieces here. We have the pattern paper and then the 2 color cardstocks that I mentioned. And then here I've just added another ephemera piece with little bees, so cute. We have a ribbon closure, which I don't normally do ribbon closures, but this album called for that. So I used eyelets to enforce my holes and then just added my ribbon through there. And all of these supplies will be listed down below for you. And when we go inside, you can see all my little goodies I have here. These are all keepsakes from that one retreat. And I have added a little ephemera piece here that says be kind to each other. This is on a dimensional pocket, which I left open on one side so that you could actually get more in there. And then of course I have little items that individuals have sent in the pocket. And these are all bee related. And look at that gorgeous paper in the background. Love it. So as you can see, here is my spine, and I've actually used 2 of the A2 and under slotted hinge so that I could fit all of my cards. So that means that you can make this as large as you want or as small as you want. I also used the pattern paper to cut out my slotted hinge rather than cardstock. That way I didn't need to mat it. So what I've done here is added my cards. Let me just show you an example. So here is the slotted hinge. And then we just take our card and add it through the hole. You just want to make sure it passes over any dimensional elements. And it goes right to the center. There's an 1/8 of an inch spacing so it can move up and down if it needs to. And you still get to see and read everything from the card. I love that. Plus you have this gorgeous little interactive element in there. Now there is a 1/4 of an inch gusset in between each of the slots. And that is also different from the original slotted hinge. This has a 1/2 an inch gusset and 3/8 of an inch spacing after the slots. For this particular hinge, we have a 1/4 of an inch gusset and a 1/4 of an inch spacing after each of the slots. This gives you a really great variety on how to use the slotted hinge. So as you can see, these are all my cards that I've received, and you can even add cards that go in different orientation. So I just put it in sideways and it's still adorable. I still get to see all the goodies. This one opens up to the side. It just works out. Even thicker dimensional items can fit in here. You just need to be patient with them when you go to put them underneath the slotted hinge, and it'll work out fine. And this one is a 5 1/4 inch card, and it fits as well. On the back inside cover, I've added a side pocket, which I've used a doily punch on to give it some decoration. Added an ephemera piece here. This is Bloom Where You're Planted, and this also can hold one of my cards, and this one opens up to the top. So I needed a different placement for that, or you can put this into the slotted hinge like this. Now another idea that I came up with for this are these adorable little charms down below. Some of the ladies that sent out cards included charms, and so I wanted to showcase them, and I've added them here at the bottom of my slotted hinge. I just added a 1/16 inch hole there, used a jump ring, and then added my charm, and I just love this. Now when you go to stand up your album, it will still sit flat because we have a 1/4 of an inch spacing here between the edge of the cover and the pages. And so the charms just kind of fold up into the hinge area, and there's still plenty of placement for them to be without scrunching anything, as you can see there. I love that feature, and I hope that you try that out. They're just so cute when they're dangling like that. It's just like having a journal when we add charms to them and we have little dangles. Just so much fun. So that is it. It's a fun, easy, quick, and simple project. And I hope that you will stick around to learn more about the new slotted hinge and how to use it. But if you're unable to stay for the tutorial, I thank you for joining me this far, and I hope that you'll bookmark this video and come back. And don't forget to check out Michelle's video, which I'll have linked down below. Now on to the tutorial. Before I actually start with the full tutorial, I'm going to talk about the slotted hinge so that you have all the information you need to know before we actually go into making the project. And I want to first talk about the original slotted hinge. So the bundle that I created comes with all the cut files, and you also get information sheets to help you with sizing when you're incorporating it to Cricut Design Space or other cutting machines. You'll have measurements that will be helpful to resize the images in case they don't incorporate in the right size. You'll also receive a pattern for the slotted hinges so that you could print this out and use that as a template to cut your own. But it would really be easy to use without a template. Michelle goes into detail on how to cut the original slotted hinge by hand. Now, I will not be showing you how to cut the 6 slotted hinge by hand, but you would do it in the same fashion that Michelle is showing in her video. When I created the 2 slotted hinge, I also created cut files to cut out pattern paper. So you'll have one that is 1/8 of an inch smaller than the original hinge so that you could add pattern paper to it if you wanted. And then you'll also receive the gusset piece if you want to add pattern paper in between the hinges. So that makes up the first original slotted hinge. For the A2 and under slotted hinge, this is the main pattern. And then you'll also receive decorative pieces that are 1/8 of an inch smaller. And if you wanted to mat your hinges, you could certainly do that. And then of course you have these little 1/8 of an inch cut files to decorate the gusset. So those are the pieces that you'll get for this particular cut file design. Now what I wanted to talk about was actually putting this together. Now I show it in the video, but I've decided to kind of just speed through that one and show you more details here because that's a pattern paper. I think it was hard to see. So I have one here that's just a solid color and I think it'll be easier. So as I mentioned, for each of these designs, you will have a sizing guide and it will include score lines that you'll need to add if you are cutting this by hand. So if making this by hand, you would cut out a 10 1/4 piece of cardstock by 6 1/8. You would then add your score marks, which is on the sizing guide, and then you would cut out these little slots. So you would come down 1/4 of an inch, go in 1/4 of an inch, and then come up 1/4 of an inch to do your markings to cut out your slot, and the slots are 1/8 of an inch wide. But if you're using a cutting machine, which is so much easier, for this particular project, you'll need to cut out 2 of these, and it does take 2 12 by 12 pieces of cardstock to cut out because of the size is over 6 inches. Now, let's talk about folding this and putting it together. So as I mentioned, there are score marks, and those score marks designate a section. This is one section or one segment from the first score line and over. So we would fold back on our score line. And now you'll be able to see it more clearly. That is like one section or one segment that I'm calling. Now we have another score line. We're going to fold on that. And now we have 2 segments, 2 slotted segments, right? You can see that? And what we want to do is join them. So to create one slotted hinge, you need 2 segments. So I have my 2 segments. Right here is one, this area, and then this area. I'm going to add adhesive to one of them. And join them together. And I found it's best to join the folded area first. And then go ahead and burnish the rest down. Okay, I think that will help a little bit more having the pencil mark in there so you can clearly see we have one hinge right here. Now we have a 1/4 of an inch spacing here. That is going to be our gusset. So we want to make sure that the hinge is in front of the gusset, and so we're going to fold over on that score line. Now truly what I've found is best is to go through and score everything downward for Cricut Design Space, because that's how it cuts it, and then come and fold back over the page to get our gusset. So there's our gusset. Here's our next score line. We're going to fold on that. And the next one, I'm going to go ahead and fold back to get up to the gusset part. Okay, so here's our gusset. We have another segment and another segment after that. So what you end up with is 2 slots, then a gusset, 2 slots, then a gusset, 2 slots, then a gusset, and so on. You glue 2 spots together, then you have your gusset. You glue 2 slots together, then you have your gusset, and so on. I hope that helps. So what I'm going to do now is add glue to one of these segments or slots. I'm going to fold over onto the other slot and combine those to make one. So once we've done that, what I would do is come back in and fold your gussets in the opposite direction to get them going in the right direction. So here we have our 2 slots, our 1/4 of an inch gusset. After the last slot, I have another 1/4 of an inch gusset, and we have 2 more slots, and we're going to glue those 2 together to create one hinge. And then you just repeat that process. Now that I've explained how this works and how you put the hinge together, I want to take a moment to show you an option on how to modify this to your needs. Let's say you want to create an album A2 and under size, but you only need 2 slotted hinges, just like this one. You can cut out the A2 and under hinge in its full size, and then calculate out how much you actually need to create your 2 slotted hinge. So as I mentioned before, you need 2 slots to create one hinge, a gusset, and then 2 slots to create the other hinge to create this look, a 2 slotted hinge. So all you would do is figure that out. You need 1, 2, 3, 4 hinges. And then on the last score line here, this is where you would cut off that part of the hinge right before the gusset. So here's my gusset. I'm going to cut right here because that will give me 2 slots, which will create one hinge, a gusset, and 2 slots, which will create my second hinge. Okay, I'm going to fold on all of my score lines. I'm going to fold back on the gusset score lines so they're in the right direction. And now everything is ready. I'm going to glue my 2 slots together. I'm going to pinch these 2 together first. And I've created my first hinge. Let's repeat that on this side. Add my adhesive to one of the segments or slots. Fold over. And I've created my second hinge. So now I have a 1/4 of an inch gusset and my 2 slotted hinge, just like this one. Okay, so that should be everything that you need to know to create and use the slotted hinge. If you do have any questions, feel free to leave them down below and I will get back to you on them. And I hope that you enjoy this new hinge. It is super fun and easy to use. Now let's get into the full tutorial. Okay, I have all the materials laid out here that we need to create the cover, so I'm just going to run through all of the items that you're going to need to create that. First, you're going to need 1 medium chipboard piece that measures 3 1/4 by 6 5/8, and this will be your spine. You'll need 2 pieces of medium weight chipboard, and these measure 5 3/4 by 6 5/8, and this is your front and back cover. So there's your cover chipboard pieces. To wrap the cover, you'll need 1 piece of cardstock. I'm using My Colors Polar Bear. You'll need 1 piece to wrap the spine, and this will measure 5 by 8 1/8. You'll need 2 pieces of cardstock to wrap the front and back covers, and these measure 8 by 8. I was initially going to use 8 by 8 to wrap the chipboard, which you could actually do. I was going to use 8 by 8 pattern paper to wrap it, but then when I saw the layer on the white, I really liked that look, so I decided to go ahead and wrap it with the white shimmer paper. Okay, so there's your wraps. Once our chipboard is wrapped, I'm going to add a decorative layer, and this pattern paper measures 5 1/2 by 6 3/8, and you're going to need 2, 1 for the front, 1 for the back. I pulled out one of the cut apart cards from the paper collection, and this measures 3 by 4, and then I cut a color cardstock layer, and this measures 3 1/4 by 4 1/4. I'm going to be matting those. Now I'm putting this in the center of this pattern paper, and you could add some doilies underneath this to layer it, but what I've done is gone out to Cricut Design Space and I did a search for honeycomb, and it came up with these, and I just really like them. I sized these down to be about 3 inches wide, and I plan to put these in the corners, and I just love that look. It's going to be so cute. So that'll actually be the front cover when we're done. For the back cover, all I've done is pull out one of the ephemera pieces, and I'm just going to add this to the bottom. I may make this a pocket in case I want to tuck something in there, but that's how that's going to look. Okay, so that's all the supplies we're going to need. Let's get started on wrapping the covers. Now I've shown you the lay flat method several times, and that's what we'll be using today. So I may try to speed through this if possible, just to save some time for you all. Okay, I have already added adhesive tape to the back side of my chipboard pieces. And for me, since I don't have the right spacers, I like to use my scoreboard and put the score lines in here that will match up with my chipboard just to make it a little bit easier when I go to place this down onto the cardstock. So that's what I'm going to do now. I'm starting with the spine piece. So we're going to score at 7/8, rotate it, score at 3/4, rotate, score at 7/8, rotate, and score at 3/4. So if you took your chipboard piece and lined it up with the score lines that we just made, you would see you have a perfect fit there. Okay? So that's what I'm going to do with the next two pieces, and this is to fit the front and back covers. We're going to score at 1 1/8, rotate, score at 5/8, rotate, 1 1/8, and 5/8. And this is only if you're going to do the same thing. This is not a step that you have to do, it's purely optional. I'm just repeating those same measurements on this piece. Okay, so I'm going to take my spine piece. Now this is going to be really hard to show you because it is white, but I'm just going to take my chipboard and align it with the score lines as I showed earlier and place this down, okay? The score lines are really just guides. While I have this turned over, I'm just going to go ahead and burnish down on the edge of the chipboard, so right in here, all the way around. And when we do that, we end up creating 4 little blocks in each of the corners, and we're going to cut those out. So the way that I do it is I go right before, I go on the outside of the score line and cut down to where the chipboard is. I don't cut too close to it because what we want in the end is for that to be covered, right? We want to wrap the corners and wrap the chipboard. Okay, so if I fold this in and fold this down, look at that. Nice, clean corners. But you can also come back in and angle cut these. Okay, now we'll do the same down here. Again, I go right in front of the score line on each side. I just found that does a better job. I think all of us designers do something a little different. What works for you is best. Now, when we're working on the spine piece, we only glue the top and the bottom down. So I'm going to go ahead and do that right now, just adding some glue there right against the chipboard. Then I take my bone folder, I start in the middle, make sure it's right to the edge, and then fold this over and burnish. Got a little sticking out there. Nice and clean. And down here on the bottom, I'm going to go ahead and do that first. There we go. Come back in, add my adhesive. Oh, I forgot to angle cut those corners. I mean, you can do it without angle cutting them, but it does give a nice little look. I'm telling you, as much as I do this binding system, I always forget something. Okay, now we can come back in, finish what we started here. And fold that down. Okay, now this piece is all ready for when we adhere it to the front and back cover, so I'm going to set this aside. So when we go to put down our chipboard for the front and back cover, make sure the 1 1/8 is on the sides. Now for this one, we glue down all the sides. Now you duplicate this same process on our second cover piece. And I'm going to do this one offline just to save some time. Now we're ready to adhere our front and back piece with our spine. And I like to use my scoreboard for this, mainly to keep everything level. So what we're going to do is line these two up together. You're kind of butting them up together. And then we're going to add adhesive to the back side here and then lay this down over the chipboard piece here on the left-hand side. Okay, so that's what we're doing. So we're going to add adhesive up to about 1/4 of an inch. Okay, guess what? As I was doing this, my camera was not filming. So I'm glad that I showed you what I was doing, so at least you know how I put this together. I just repeated that same process on the right-hand side. And so now all of our pieces are together. And I have shown this process many times. I may link Tamara's video just so that you have that as a reference guide as well, since I had some snafus going on with my filming. Before we move to the inside, let's go ahead and finish decorating the outside since we already have those pieces cut. And since I've given you all the measurements, I'm just going to fast forward this section and just show you me putting it together. I forgot to provide the decorative pieces for the spine. So what I have here is a color cardstock that measures 3 6 3/8, and then my pattern paper is 2.5 by 6, and I was able to use this as a cutoff from when I did the cover. Now, even though I did use the 8 by 8 collection to create this, I think I did have some 12 by 12 cut aparts and ephemera that I may have used. I think these are from the 12 by 12 collection. I really just, they're all in one bag and I just grabbed them. This color cardstock is the same cardstock that I used to cut out the honeycomb. So I like that we have a consistent colorway going on. And I will add something here later on, but that is our cover. Now let's go to the inside of our cover, and the first thing we want to do is cover the spine area. We're going to need one piece of cardstock that measures 7 by 6 5/8. Now you can cut the height of this down to be whatever preference that you prefer. I'm just making it the same height as my album to make sure that I cover any of the chipboard that might be showing. So all we do is just make sure that when we cover the spine area that we have about 1 inch on each side from the original flaps. So this is the flap from the original spine, and we want to go 1 inch out with the new cardstock. So we're just going to cover it like that. Okay, I'm going to get some adhesive on the back and then we'll do that. Okay, here we are. I have my score tape on the back. Now I have actually tried adhering this piece down with our glitter glue, but I do find that sometimes you'll get that cracking sound, and I just don't like that. So definitely recommend score tape. Now this is going to be a little tricky. I need to get my head over it a little bit. But as you can see here, I'm trying to make sure that I have about an inch beyond this initial hinge here on each side. And then we're just going on a wing and a prayer right there, right? Just make sure you burnish this down really, really good. Okay, and now what we want to do is start lifting up on the left-hand side, and we want to take our bone folder in the crease between the two pieces of chipboard and start making a crease there. Actually, this is working really easy. We're going to do the same thing on the other side. And when we're done, we actually have our little book. How cute is this? Oh my gosh, I'm loving it already. Okay, for the inside, you're going to need 2 pieces of pattern paper. And these are what I have selected. This is actually on 1 page. Looks more like that. And these measure 5.5 by 6 3/8. And these are going to go here. On the back inside cover, what I've done is taken a piece of scrap, and this probably measured about 1 3/4 when I started, but I used a doily punch and created a decorative edge. So the final size is 1 5/8 by 6 3/8. And I'm going to add that here to the side to just give a little side pocket. On the front, you're going to need a piece of cardstock pattern paper, or if you wanted to do a color cardstock in this and then add your pattern paper, you could. It's really up to you. I already cut this, so I'm just going to use it. So this measures 6 by 3. And we're going to pull out our scoreboard. We're going to score at a 1/2 inch. We're going to rotate this once to the right and score at a 1/2 inch. Okay, so where the 2 score lines intersect, we are going to just cut right across there at a diagonal. We're also going to diagonal cut right at the top of the score line and down here. So this is what your piece looks like when we're done. Now we can fold and burnish on those lines. And what we've created is a pocket, and I'm actually going to get a corner rounder and round this corner. I have the We Are Memory Keepers 3-way punch, I think that's what it's called. I'm just going to use the 7mm. Put that in there. Maybe I'll use the 10. Yeah, I like that better. And so if we bring this back in, we have a side tuck area there, and over here we're just going to do a simple dimensional pocket on the front. I think that's going to be cute. I'm going to glue these down, and then we'll talk about the hinge in the center. So if you followed me for a while, you know I like to use just regular household tape to kind of go over some of our hinges so that when we put stuff in the pocket, it doesn't get stuck. So that's what I've done here and here on the side. I think I'm going to have to trim this one. And now we can add our adhesive to this and then stick that down very carefully. I maybe should have only done one side at a time. We'll see. Perfect. I wanted this to be open because I have some larger items that I want to put in here. Now we can work on our hinge. I'm going to do any additional decorating off camera. And what you need for that is our wonderful Michelle Allen inspired slotted hinge. We're going to take this, which I've cut out using Cricut, and turn it into this. This is a 6 slotted hinge. So you're going to need to cut out 2 of these to create this project exactly the way that I've done it. But again, this could be modified for whatever your purposes are. There are score lines throughout, and we want to fold on each of those score lines, and that's the first thing we want to do. Onto 2 slots, adding adhesive to one of them. We're going to fold over here, and here it is. And then just fold over on our gusset. And there we have it, our 6 slotted hinge. Okay, now we have our 2 sets of hinges. You're also going to need 1 piece of cardstock that matches your hinge. It's going to act like a spacer. And this measures 1/4 of an inch by 6 1/8, and that is the same height as the hinges. I created the hinge so it could be on an 8.5 by 11 paper so that you could easily print it off for those that are creating by hand. So this particular project requires 2 of these to hold all the items that I want to put in it. So I'm going to bridge that gap with this little 1/4 of an inch spacer. So that's what we're doing. Okay, now we're ready to adhere our hinges into our cover. And I made just a few little tick marks just for some guides. I just like having them there. We're going to be about a 1/4 of an inch down from the top, a 1/4 an inch up from the bottom, because this measures 6 1/8. And I'm going in about 3/16 to about a 1/4 of an inch from each side when I place them down, okay? Now I'm going to just use art glitter glue to adhere these down. It's really the most important thing is to get this placed where you want it and straight, and then worry about putting down the rest of it. And once you have it where you want it, I mean, really, that's the tricky part, right? Just burnish this down really well, going in between the gussets, and then I'll do over the whole thing. Just be careful you don't mess up your little holes. And there's the first part. The reason you can't just add your 2 hinges next to each other is there's no gusset in between them, and you actually need that to have good spacing, or your 2 pages are going to be on top of each other, you know? It'll be hard to tell them apart. So that was the point of doing the spacer. But you can put these down without a spacer. Nothing says you have to use it. You know, you don't have to use it if you want to see the white in between, or whatever color you're using. That is perfectly okay. Just want to make sure you get these lined up, kind of even, making sure it's underneath the last hinge. Going to flatten these out, see if that's a better way to do it. Okay, so there is our spine. Now, my spacer did not end up being wide enough, so I did go back and change that to be about 3/8 of an inch by 6 1/8. So maybe you should put down your 2 slotted hinges first and then add your spacer piece. It really just all depends on where you place them down on your spine. But I think this is looking really good. I'm so excited about this. Now, before I load my items into the slots, I had an idea on how to decorate this hinge. So in one of the items that I'm adding to this, there was a necklace, a little bee charm here, and this little like pot of honey with gold in it. So adorably cute. This is all on one little jump ring, but it's a necklace, and I would rather add it to my book here. So the idea is to take one of these little like 1/16 of an inch punches And I'm going to make a punch along my 1/4 of an inch area right here at the bottom of one of the slots. Now I'm going to go to the inside so it looks kind of centered and just make my hole. Yeah, I'm just gonna, we're winging this. This is the first time I've ever done this, and we're going to see if it works. And now we have a little dangle. I love it. And even when you go to set this down, it will just kind of fold up underneath there, and there's still plenty of room because this is a 1/4 of an inch away from the edge of the cover. So I think that is so adorably cute. I love it. Okay, and now what I'm going to do is add all of my cards that I've kept from the Be Scrappy virtual retreat from Country Craft Creations. That's what I wanted to use this for, was to house all of those wonderful cards that I received. And I noticed that a lot of them were the same size, so that's what generated this size of these slotted hinge. And I think it's perfect. We go to these retreats, we get these little great cards, and this is a great way to keep them. So let's go ahead and add them here. Now this one does have a little gem there. You should easily be able to add these. There's an 1/8 of an inch extra spacing. Just got to make sure you get it over all of the items. How cute is this? And I'm just going to put these in at random. Now this one opens this way. If you want to keep it in its own little slot, you would just put it sideways, or you could add it to our back little tuck spot or our front little pocket. We'll see how that one works out. I really like that one. It's cute. Here's a big one. I think I'm going to put this one at the back. This is a 5 by 5, I think. 5 1/4 by 5 1/4. I'm going to put it back here. And see, it will still fit. I made sure it fit all of these cards. Here's another one. Patty Murphy. You just got to maybe lift it up over the dimensional items if possible. Ooh. And once you get past that, it's right in there. Fits right in there. And it has plenty of room to move around. That's cute. So many cute ones. Oh my goodness. I looked at these in 2021 and I forgot what they look like. Now this one had lots of goodies, but I'm going to try and put it in here. It's a little bit fatter than the other ones, so you just gotta be a little bit careful. And that can go there. Yeah, that one's a little bit fatter. I'm not sure those two pieces go with this. Okay, let's see. Yep, so that goes there. And we can take this one, which is a tag, and tuck that up front. And I'll just tuck these in here as well. So now we have our little card storage album. I absolutely love it. This slotted hinge was the perfect thing to use to create this. If the cards aren't dimensional, you could probably layer 2 in one slot. And I love putting in the ones that are sideways because it just adds interest. I thought I had 2 of these. Well, this one back here. And that fits there. Super fun. I'm just going to do a little decorating, and then this will be done. Look at that. Oh, I guess we should have done a closure. It's not going to stay closed. Okay, now I'm going to add a ribbon closure for our album. And what I've done is gone ahead and found the center of the album. So it's about 3 3/8 or 3 19/16 if you want to be exact. So I've come down and marked a spot, and it's also 1/8 of an inch in from the edge of my decorative paper. And I've done the same on the back. I'm just going to use some eyelets and my big mouth crocodile. Then I have some seam binding from Country Craft Creations. And this is about 14 inches long. I have 2 of those. So I'm just going to go ahead and do this. These are the smaller size, the 1/8. Okay, so that's our tutorial for today. I hope that you have enjoyed this project and will give it a try. If you do, please post pictures. I would love to see it. And I hope that you give our slotted hinge a try. It is super fun and really easy to use. And I will see you next time.